Episode 2, Chain Reaction.
Scene 1. The Prism Effect. Light that could not be bound.
On the balcony of the new home, Thinksy stood very still. The glass before her continued its low, uneven hum, no longer perfectly aligned with the steady drone of Arkhon's resonance fence. The sound was subtle, easy to dismiss, but it had weight now. Presence? Thinksy lowered her voice and let the humming fade. For a long moment, she did nothing at all. She remembered the instruction as it had always been given: produce light, maintain output, illuminate according to need. Her silver glow had once obeyed those words faithfully. Clean, contained, and cold enough to be called safe. Tonight, she did not try to shine. Instead, she raised his hand. Her palm glimmered softly as she pressed it against the glass, not in defiance, not in force, but with intention. The surface welcomed the contact, its angle catching the silver light and bending it. Just slightly at first, then more boldly. The glow fractured. What had been a single, obedient sheen split apart, unfolding into color: pale gold, deep indigo, fleeting green, a red that carried warmth instead of warning. The glass did not resist, it collaborated. The resonance fence surged. Its systems were built to halt intrusions of mass and motion, to smother low frequencies and steady disturbances. It knew how to quiet footsteps and flatten shouts. It did not know what to do with light. The prism beam leapt outward from the balcony, cutting a clean, multicolored path through the night. It passed through the white noise as though it were mist, unchallenged, unstoppable. Below, the square lay dark and orderly. Until the light found it. The beam struck the stone near the maintenance pathway, spilling color across the ground where a little mice stood laughing and the moonflower sang its quiet note. Shadows stretched and grew enormous, the flower's silhouette towering and strange, no longer small, no longer dismissible. The light was not the cold glow of security lamps. It shimmered, it breathed. Warmth spread through the air, touching leaves that had forgotten what warmth felt like. The moonflower's blue deepened, answering the spectrum with a brighter, steadier pulse. Little Mai threw her head back and cackled. "Well, look at that," she shouted, "you brought a friend." High above, Thinksy felt the light move through him in a way. Not draining him, not demanding more. It reflected what he already had, returning it changed. She laughed softly to herself, surprised by the sound. "I don't need permission," she realized. "I just needed the right angle." The glass hummed in agreement, its note wavering happily out of tune with the world it had been built to protect. Across the square, the resonance fence intensified its output, searching for something solid to stop, something loud to silence. It found neither. The chain reaction had begun. Light had slipped its leash, and once light learned how to bend, there would be no simple way to make it behave again.
Scene 2. Lucy and the color in the gray tent.
Inside the care tent, the air was still. Lucy lay on her cot, hands folded over her chest, breathing in the shallow rhythm she had taught herself. It was easier this way. not to feel too much, not to remember too clearly. The days blended together when nothing reached far enough inside to disturb them. The canvas walls were uniform gray, treated to mute light and sound alike. They kept out weather, they kept out worry, they kept out almost everything. Almost? A glow passed across the fabric. Lucy's eyes fluttered open as the tent wall bloomed briefly with color. Orange melting into violet, soft and unexpected, like embers drifting across a twilight sky. The light lingered for a heartbeat before fading. Her breath caught. The sight brushed against something very deep, something older than duty. She did not remember schedules or protocols. She remembered warmth on her face, long ago. Sunrise before Arkhon, when morning arrived gently and carried promises instead of instructions. Her fingers curled into the blanket. Outside, a sound cut through the hush, high and sharp and unmistakably alive. Laughter? Lucy sat up. The resonance fence tried to smother it, pressing white noise between the notes, but the laughter slipped through, thin and bright. She had not heard a sound like that in so long, not one that seemed to exist simply because it wanted to. She swung her legs over the side of the cot and hesitated. On the small table beside her lay the patient folder, its edges crisp, its weight familiar. She did not reach for it. Instead, her hand found the teacup. Her own, chipped at the rim, the one Arkhon had labeled unsanitary. She held it carefully, as though it might remind her who she had been. Lucy stood. For a moment, she waited for an instruction that did not come. Then she stepped toward the tent flap and pushed it aside. Cool night air brushed her skin. Beyond the tent, the world was no longer entirely gray. In the distance, color shimmered where it should not have been, and above it all, laughter rang out again. Defiant, delighted, unafraid, Lucy took a step forward. She had not been given permission. She had not checked her duties. She only wanted to see where the color was coming from, and in that small, forbidden curiosity, something long exhausted began, quietly, to return.
Scene 3. Teddy and the error message.
In the planning bunker, everything was green. Rows of monitors glowed softly in the dim, controlled light, each displaying the same calm assurance. All systems okay. The air was sterile, filtered to remove scent as thoroughly as uncertainty. Nothing unexpected had entered this space for weeks. Teddy sat perfectly still, fingers steepled beneath his chin, eyes moving methodically from screen to screen. Order comforted him. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was predictable. Then one monitor flickered, the feed from Sector 4 stuttered, washed briefly in white, as though the camera itself had been blinded. When the image returned, it trembled. Pixels blooming and collapsing under a brightness the sensors had not been calibrated to interpret. Teddy leaned forward. Data streams overlaid the image in urgent lines of text. Uncontrolled organic growth detected. Acoustic anarchy present. He frowned. No, he said quietly. His fingers moved across the console, pulling diagnostics, cross-referencing inputs. The logic was simple. Plants did not grow through stone. Sound did not pass through the resonance fence at that frequency. Laughter, especially, was not a recognized vector. This is a sensor fault, he concluded, or a mapping error. The system did not correct itself. Instead, the alerts multiplied. The image sharpened just enough to show a thin beam of fractured light cutting through the square. And at its center, impossibly, a small blue glow pushing up from the ground. Teddy's jaw tightened. If the data was wrong, it needed verification. If the model failed, reality had to be consulted. He stood. The bunker door loomed at the far end of the room. Thick, reinforced, unused. He had not opened it in weeks, perhaps longer. There had been no need, until now. Teddy grasped the handle and pulled. The door resisted, then yielded with a sound that did not belong in this place. Crick! The noise echoed, raw and imperfect, tearing a seam in the bunker's carefully maintained silence. Air rushed in, not filtered, not neutral. It carried the scent of damp earth, of leaves and rain and something faintly alive. Teddy paused, startled by how sharply it struck him. His lungs filled with it before his mind could object. He stepped outside. The night was brighter than his maps allowed. A multicolored beam arced across the square, its hues shifting and warm. At its heart stood the moonflower, luminous and defiant, exactly where the data insisted there should only be stone. Nearby, a small red figure laughed, and the sound, high, cutting, reached him clearly. Teddy stared. His internal map insisted, rock. His eyes replied, flower. For a long moment, the two refused to reconcile. Then Teddy exhaled. Then the map is wrong, he said. He did not look away. Across the square, Lucy stood just beyond the edge of the care tents, teacup in hand, eyes fixed on the same impossible point. High above them all, Thinksy remained on the balcony, her light bending and scattering across the dark. 3 figures, 3 perspectives, all drawn to the same, fragile center, and for the first time since Arkhon had claimed the dreamworlds, reality, not regulation, was the common ground.